Before Atlantis became a legend, it was a thriving city. Children ran along stone streets warmed by the rising sun, merchants shouted over deals that mattered only to them, and fishermen returned from the sea with nets heavy with life. The air smelled of salt, baked stone, and fresh bread from small bakeries. Life went on as normal, yet beneath that calm, the ground itself seemed to tremble ever so slightly, an unheeded warning of the horror that waited silently.
Plato wrote of Atlantis not as a myth, but as a warning. The people were brilliant, audacious, and utterly blind to the fragility of their existence. Scholars studied stars, tides, and the hidden forces of the earth, believing that knowledge equaled mastery. Their arrogance was woven into every street, every building, every canal that carried water through the city with precise, unnatural flow. Perfection had lulled them into complacency, and complacency was a luxury that the world could not allow them to keep.
The city was more than architecture. It was a statement. Streets curved in perfect circles, towers aligned with the heavens, and the reflection of the canals created illusions of order that no mortal had seen before. The citizens walked with confidence, believing that invincibility came from precision, that the earth and the sea would obey their will. Yet nature, patient and relentless, did not yield to confidence.
The ocean itself began to misbehave. Tides arrived early or late, waves struck with unfamiliar rhythm, and the very creatures of the land and sea recoiled from the city. Birds left the sky in panicked flocks, dogs howled without cause, fish deserted the shore in droves. Some noticed, few acted. Leaders dismissed the anomalies as coincidence, while the scholars observed with growing dread, unable to convince the masses of the danger lurking just beyond perception. Arrogance drowned caution.
Beneath the city, hidden chambers pulsed with energy long buried by time. Scholars discovered strange glowing stones and intricate mechanisms that hummed with life. They thought themselves capable of controlling the power. They did not understand that this force had rules of its own, laws written before humanity walked upright, and punishment for disobedience was swift and absolute.
The night before disaster, a heavy stillness settled over Atlantis. No storm brewed, no tremor shook the foundations. Families slept, guards patrolled in silence, and the city felt invulnerable. But the calm was unnatural, dense with anticipation. The ocean held its breath, waiting, patient and eternal. When the waves finally rose, it was not gradual. They surged like a living being, swallowing streets, canals, and boats in seconds. Screams echoed, punctuated by the roar of collapsing stone and splintering wood. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled under the relentless tide. The city that believed itself untouchable was erased in a night, leaving only echoes and whispers beneath the surface. By dawn, nothing remained above water. The city had vanished, leaving a memory etched in fear. The night fell over Atlantis with a deceptive calm, a silence so heavy it pressed against the chest like water. No storm raged, no wind howled. The city, confident in its perfection, continued its rhythm. Families ate dinner, merchants closed their stalls, and children played briefly before being called inside. But under the surface, the ocean was already awake. It had waited, patient, coiled, biding its time until the city believed it had nothing to fear. Maya, one of the scholars' descendants who had studied the old texts with obsessive curiosity, stood at the city's edge. She could feel the ocean's pulse, subtle at first, a thrum beneath the feet of the city. Something ancient was stirring. It wasn't just water. It was a force older than the stones of Atlantis, alive and intelligent in its own terrifying way. The tide receded strangely, revealing seabed that had never been seen, like bones of the earth rising for inspection.
Then it began, slowly at first, then with overwhelming speed. Water surged into the streets, washing away small boats, overturning carts and flooding homes. Candles flickered and went out, leaving the city in darkness, pierced only by the reflection of the rising ocean. People screamed, but the sound was drowned beneath the roar of the water. Panic spread like fire. Parents ran, children cried, merchants abandoned all they had ever owned, clinging only to life.
The ground beneath Atlantis quivered violently, buildings shaking as if the city itself understood its impending doom. Marble towers cracked, stones split, and wood splintered under pressure. The engineers, who had spent lifetimes believing they controlled nature, now scrambled helplessly, realizing that their knowledge was worthless in the face of the ocean's might.
As Maya navigated the streets, she saw figures struggling against the tide. Neighbors, friends, scholars, all thrown by the relentless surge. Some clutched onto debris, some tried to climb crumbling walls, and some vanished in seconds, dragged beneath the surface by currents stronger than any human could fight. The air was thick with screams, shouts, and the crashing of stone. Yet, beneath the chaos, a low, almost imperceptible hum vibrated through the city.
That energy responded to the panic, reacting in unpredictable ways. Cracks glowed faintly, pulses of light flickering beneath streets now underwater. The ocean seemed to interact with it, waves shaped as though guided by invisible hands, and the city's demise was orchestrated with a precision that terrified even the survivors. By the time the central plaza was submerged, only fragments of human resilience remained. People clung to each other, to beams, to whatever they could find. The air was thick with salt, fear, and despair. The once grand structures of Atlantis now appeared fragile, as if the perfection they prided themselves on had been a lie.
Hours passed, though time felt suspended. The screams faded into gurgles, then silence. Only the faint hum of the energy deep below the city persisted, like a heartbeat of something alive and unforgiving. The ocean, having consumed what it needed, withdrew slightly, leaving a landscape unrecognizable. Streets submerged, buildings half collapsed, and only the most daring or fortunate clinging to life. Maya floated on debris, shivering, realizing that survival was not guaranteed. The city had tested its inhabitants and found them wanting. Atlantis had not merely fallen, it had been judged. And in the eerie stillness that followed, the ocean whispered secrets that humans were never meant to fully understand.
Few survived the night when Atlantis disappeared beneath the ocean's wrath. Those who did were forever changed, not just physically, but in mind and spirit. Maya, clinging to a floating beam, saw the once proud towers vanished beneath the waves. The city that had seemed immortal was gone in hours, leaving only debris and echoes.
The survivors were scattered, some carried by currents miles from their homes. They washed ashore on distant coasts, shivering, exhausted, and utterly alone. Their eyes held a haunted understanding. Atlantis had not merely been destroyed, it had judged its inhabitants, sparing no one who had not understood the delicate balance between nature and human arrogance.
Among them, whispers began to grow. People spoke of shadows moving beneath the water, of strange lights flickering deep in the ocean where the city once stood. Some claimed they could hear faint voices calling their names, carried on the wind or through dreams. And in their minds, the city remained alive, watching, waiting.
In quiet moments, the survivors would recall figures they had glimpsed in the flood's chaos, shapes moving unnaturally, almost human, almost shadow. They appeared at the edge of perception, vanishing when looked at directly. Some swore the city's energy had created these forms, guardians of secrets that humans were never meant to see. Many survivors relived the night endlessly in dreams,
Every creaking stone, every rush of water, every flash of collapsing tower returned in vivid detail. Sleep offered no escape. Reality blended with memory and imagination, leaving them uncertain of what had truly occurred and what had been whispered by the city itself.
They sought others who had survived, trying to piece together the story, sketching the city's streets and towers from memory. Maps showed empty oceans, charts noted no anomalies, yet their recollections were clear and consistent. Atlantis had been real, its destruction had been absolute, and they had been the witnesses no one would believe. Even generations later, descendants of the survivors felt the pull of the lost city. Dreams, visions, and whispers haunted them. Some claimed to see shapes beneath the waves, glimpses of streets and towers paused in time. Atlantis had vanished physically, but it lived in the minds and fears of those who had survived. The line between reality and legend blurred, leaving an eternal question. Had the city truly disappeared, or was it waiting for the right moment to rise again?
The ocean had consumed Atlantis, but its story was far from over. Survivors whispered of streets glimpsed beneath the waves, of ruins glowing faintly in the depths. Maya floated on debris, staring at the endless water, feeling a presence she could not explain. The city's pulse lingered beneath the surface, like a heartbeat no one alive should hear.
Explorers and divers who ventured near the rumored site reported impossible visions: stone towers rising then disappearing, light pulses that seemed to follow them, currents that pushed them back as if guided. Equipment malfunctioned mysteriously, instruments detecting energies they could not understand. Every dive ended with questions and fear, and the city's legend grew.
The survivors realized that even if Atlantis was gone, the energy it harbored remained. Shadows moved beneath the waves, whispers echoed without source, and the sea seemed aware of every intrusion. Attempts to map or document failed. The city had vanished physically, but its power persisted, hidden and patient, watching those who dared investigate.
One night, Maya saw the water shimmer unnaturally. Patterns emerged, geometric shapes reflecting light in impossible ways. Energy stirred beneath the waves, reacting to the presence of the living. It was alive, aware, and calculating. The city had not surrendered. It was waiting, and whoever approached would feel its silent judgment.
Dreams plagued the survivors. They saw Atlantis in its full glory, untouched by the ocean, as if paused in time. Streets, towers, and canals reflected perfection. Yet the visions were not comforting, they were warnings. The city reminded them of their hubris, of what had been lost, and of what might return.
Maya felt a pull toward the ocean, stronger each night. Whispers spoke in her mind, warning of curiosity and pride. She understood. Atlantis had tested humanity, and its judgment was not over. Those who sought it again would find more than ruins. They would confront forces beyond comprehension, waiting silently beneath the waves.
The survivors gazed silently at the water, each lost in thought. They had escaped with their lives, but carried something heavier, knowledge that the world was wider, stranger, and more dangerous than anyone imagined. Atlantis remained alive in memory and energy, a story unfinished, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And somewhere beneath the waves, the city's pulse continued, silent, eternal, and haunting.